right. It's 6 places where business buyers get stopped. And I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I have a pretty good feeling of at what points people wanting to get into their own business and looking to buy it, where they get stopped. It's almost always in one of these 6 places. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to cover these 6 places. We're going to demystify them so that you can see exactly what they are, why they stop entrepreneurs, and how it is that you can unstick yourself or unstop yourself if you happen to be stuck or stopped in one of these places. And it'll become pretty self-evident as I go through these. And so for the moment, just bear with me, and I'm actually just going to go through them. And then after I go through them in their entirety, I'm then going to take them one at a time, and I'm going to go through our program, and I'm going to show you and explain to you all of the places in our program where it addresses each one of those stopping points and how it can help you through that stopping point so that you get it behind you and move on to your next step. And so the idea here is to help you clear any obstacle that is really interfering with your ability to get yourself successfully into a good going business. So let me just go through these with you, and I'll comment briefly on them as I go through them, and then we'll get into the Bizar financing program and start to identify how it is that we can unstop any one of these stoppers. Okay, let's take number 1, for example, identifying the right business or field to go into. This is the first place that people get stopped, because what's happening to people who are making a life-changing decision as to how you're going to conduct the rest of your life, you don't want to do this 3 and 4 and 5 more times. You don't mind having to change fields because the economy changes or because what the public is looking for and their tastes change. That's part of evolving through business. But what you do want to do is get into something that you enjoy, something that you feel fulfilled by, something that excites you, something that if you go to work and do this every day, you're going to be a happy camper, something where your core competencies and your skill sets will help you shine. And so identifying that right business or field to go into is something that stops people, because this is a place where you become unsure of, well, is this the right business for me? Will I be happy here? Is this going to be fulfilling for me? Is it going to answer all those questions? And until you're satisfied that those questions have been fully answered for you, it's really hard to go beyond that point with enthusiasm. So it's where a whole bunch of folks get stopped. The second place is finding a worthwhile business for sale by a motivated seller. Now there's a couple of key elements to that. Worthwhile business, for sale, motivated seller. And each of those 3 points is vitally important, because if you take away any one of them, the purchase is going to become a lot more difficult and a lot less fruitful. So finding that business that's a good business, that's for sale by a motivated seller, somebody who will be flexible when it comes to the terms necessary to make a purchase, is something that stops a lot of people. So here you are now, you've found the right field for you to go into, but you just can't find a business that's worth buying or a seller that's motivated to sell. So we're going to look at that today and look about how we get unstopped there if that's what's stopping us. Number 3 is meeting directly with the seller. And that includes, by the way, getting past a business broker, because a lot of times you might go to a business broker and they refuse to let you meet the seller. They want to be the go-between and deliver all the information back and forth between you and the seller. It's very difficult to creatively buy a business that way, because you're limited by the communication skills of that broker and his own agenda. And you can't form a cosmic bond with a seller through a broker. It only happens when you meet that seller directly. Now, meeting the seller directly carries some heavy burdens that can stop you. And the burden is what we used to call in the insurance business when they were training us to go out and sell insurance. They called it hot doorknobs and on-fire telephones. And what they meant by that was the fear, the intimidation factor of picking up a phone and facing rejection when you call somebody to set up a meeting or to try and get their agreement. It's a hard thing psychologically for a lot of people to do. And so it puts forth a barrier that a lot of folks get stopped here because they can't just pick up that phone and call somebody they don't know or that they don't feel comfortable with. So we're going to spend some time today in what is this barrier, how does it work, and how do we get past it so that we can feel comfortable picking up a phone or making contact by the ways in which we can soften that approach to make it more comfortable for us to reach out and make that connection. Now, if you're good enough and diligent enough to get past the first three places where business buyers get stopped, then you got the fourth one here, which is actually negotiating the purchase. And this one can put people on overwhelm because negotiating a purchase is pretty sophisticated. I mean, think about this. Number one, you have to have an understanding of the techniques and methods of negotiation so that you feel comfortable even doing it and that you can be successful doing it because you know what to do and how things work and when not to do things. But it's even deeper than that because in order to negotiate, you got to understand value. You got to know what's valuable and what's not so you know what to put an emphasis on. You got to know how to make the trade-offs, and you can't do that without understanding the values involved. So there's an analytical side to it. There's a knowledge side of the business. There's an understanding of the seller. I mean, I could go on, and I won't do it here because here we're just really briefly going through the stoppers. But to be a good negotiator means you have to command a lot of elements. And so there's a big fear factor that separates number 3 and number 4 up here because even after you've met the seller, really conducting a sophisticated negotiation and getting what you want and having it materialize is very, very difficult for a lot of folks, especially if you have weak communication skills. So number 4, we're going to be addressing that as well today in terms of how in our program and where in our program that stop gets handled. Now, if you manage to get through stops 1 through 4, then number 5 is a stopper if you really need outside cash to get this done. It'll stop you if you don't know how to get it. And if you don't know where to go to get it, how to position yourself to get it, how to make it so attractive to the person you want it from that they throw it at you. They won't let you out of the room until you take their money. And understanding that piece, if you need it, is again an essential part of the process. And so it can stop you if you're there and it takes that 10,000, 100,000, million, 20 million to close the deal and get what you really want. And all those numbers, by the way, are achievable. It's just a question of know-how and technique and of structuring your deal so that it makes sense to the people you want the money from, knowing where to get it, who to go for, and what to tell them, and how to show them that they're going to win, and how to show them they're going to minimize their risk. It's all doable. And then if you're good enough to get through the first 5, you now have number 6, which is different than negotiating the deal. Negotiating the deal brings you to the point where everybody is pretty much ready to do everything that's required. Closing the deal is getting people to write checks and sign documents. And there's probably nothing more frightening to people than having to ask people to sign stuff and ask people to write a check. It's a hard thing for people to do. But again, there are psychological methods to help you through that. There are ways that you can prepare yourself so that closing the deal literally rolls off your tongue, literally becomes second nature to you, so that you don't get within 1 foot of the finish line and then all of a sudden you choke and you don't get the closing and all of a sudden the deal dematerializes right before your very eyes. So these are the major stoppers. And as you think about it, if you look at your own experience in trying to get yourself into a business, you can probably look at those and identify which ones have stopped you so far, and perhaps where you are on that continuum of 6 different major places where business buyers get stopped. And perhaps the really good news here is that before this day is out, before our 2 hours together is complete, you're going to fully understand these stops. You're going to understand how they affect you and why they've become stops for you, how to overcome those stops, and in fact, where in our program you're going to get all of the support and confidence building that you need to make sure that these things no longer become a stop for you, and that when you get to the next place where you're likely to get stopped, you'll be ready for it. And it won't be a surprise to you. You'll feel totally comfortable and ready to move on through. And believe me, whatever work you put into conquering the techniques for overcoming these 6 stoppers, whatever work you put in, whatever frustrations you feel along the way, whatever sacrifices you make, closing that first deal overcomes everything. It gets you to the point where you feel unstoppable. You feel that the world is yours, and you know, absolutely know, that you are now in total control of your financial future. There's nothing like the feeling you get having closed the deal and stepping into that new business that's going to build your future. So, with that by way of introduction, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to now go through here and show you how to get unstopped. And all of it's going to come out of the Bizar Financing Table of Contents, which takes you through all of the various sections, all of the pieces of those sections and subsections, and leads you systematically through a system, a process and a system that if you follow it, will systematically take you through each and every one of these obstacles. And the videos, remember, are all coordinated with the audios, which are all coordinated with the workbook, which are all coordinated with the tools that are available to you, which all lead into further refinement through the webinars that you participate in and that you can go back to in our library. And everything is there for you to the point where you can go through here and identify exactly where your issue is, exactly what you need to do to fix it, and exactly what you need to do to move on to your next challenge. But they're limited. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's called closing the deal, and when it happens, you're done. At least you're done buying it. Now comes the real fun. You're going to run it and build yourself some phenomenal income and net worth. But these are the things that are the inhibitors, and through Bizar Financing, our objective is to train you, show you, support you, do what it takes to help you in every way we know how to take you through what it takes to overcome those obstacles. So, let's start out with the first obstacle up here, which was identifying the right business or field to go into. Now, I could have put another stopper ahead of number 1, which is getting yourself structured to do this, getting yourself positioned to do it, meaning getting your head right. But I didn't want to go there because to many people, they won't see that as an obstacle. And I'll only reference it here because it is part of the process. Because you see, you are a foundation on which you are going to build a very big building. And if your foundation isn't strong, you're limiting the size of the structure, the size of the building that you can put upon yourself. And so that just leads to the importance of these early sections of Bizar Financing, where we help you to build that psychological foundation that you need to grow a very big enterprise on your shoulders. And so, again, I want to encourage everybody to, as you review and go through this process, to go back to these early sections and make sure that you're comfortable, that you're satisfied, that you are coming from a psychological and emotional and intellectual place that is so strong that if not ready to build your building right now in a massive way, that you at least know what has to be done to work yourself there so that your foundation is strong enough to put on top of that foundation anything you really want out of life. And these are the tools that'll help you get there. Okay, so psychology of business success. How to get from where you are now to where it is that you want to go. Here is where we get into unlocking that dream inside yourself. What is it? What is it that really turns you on? And then how to convert that into goals, and setting those goals and writing those goals down and getting your subconscious mind in full alignment with where it is that you want to go in life, so that your subconscious mind becomes a powerful partner in getting done what you want to get done. Anybody who's succeeded radically at anything gets it really quickly that their conscious mind is not smart enough to do the things that they ended up doing that got them where they've gotten to. That there were things that they did automatically. There were things that they did without thinking about it. There were things that popped out of the environment that they don't even know how they saw that. They weren't paying attention, and yet there it was, and it just came to their attention. Well, see, that's your subconscious at work. That's your subconscious helping you fulfill your conscious goals. And so understanding that and learning how to tap into that strength, learning how to build your self-image so that you see yourself as that strong foundation upon which you can erect any edifice that you visualize you want to create for yourself and your financial structure. Working with that self-image, and then making your plans, taking action, sustaining that commitment, checking your alignment. These are all important pieces of that. I'm not going to belabor them here, but I'm going to say to you, if you feel you're lacking in any part of that, if you feel that there's any part of your foundation which isn't strong enough to build the level of building you want to put on that foundation, then here is where you're going to find your answers, the things to do, the things to practice, the things that will help you accomplish those things. And very similarly, how you look and appear and act is such a critical factor. Last week, I believe it was, I went over with you a deal that we're putting together, not last week, but last webinar. I went over with you a deal that we're currently putting together, and how all the pieces fell into place. That would not happen if I didn't look the part, act the part, and then through my understanding of myself, be the part. And that required education. It required experience in finance, management, leadership, motivation, speaking skills, self-awareness, knowing who I am and what I'm capable of, my industrial and technical knowledge, my reading and memory skills, my experience. Okay, I worked on these for many, many years. I didn't just materialize overnight, having this incredible structure on which today I can now build whatever it is I want to build. But I worked on building up that foundation, knowing that the structure and building that I could put upon my own shoulders would only be proportional to the structure I created into that foundation. And so every day I work on building that foundation. And so again, in this section of the workbook, in this section of the audios and the videos, this is a guidepost to how do you accomplish those things so that wherever you go, you look the part, you act the part, you are the part. And there will be no doubt in anyone's mind when they speak to you, when they see you, when they interact with you, that they don't need to vet you, they don't need to validate you, they don't need to see your financial statement, they don't need to ask you these penetrating questions that you can't answer right now, because you project yourself in such a way that they get it just in your presence, that you're real and you can deliver what you say. And once people feel that way about you, you virtually unlock the doors as to what can happen for you in life. Section number 3 here is also a part of the process, but it really gets into the negotiation. So I'm going to save this and maybe come back to it when we get down into more of the negotiating sessions. So just bear with me because I'm going to come back here. I'm going to go now right to how to find the right business for you and address it here identifying the right business or field to go into. There is a big, big world out there. I mean, big world. And there are businesses engaged in every type of human activity that you can imagine. There is nothing of interest to you that there isn't some business that's built on serving people to whom that's an interest. And so part of this process is not going into a business that somehow intellectually you think is a hot field to go into, one of the fastest growing things on the planet, one that will be good in a bad economy, or one that will be great in a good economy, or one that you're ahead of the trend. I mean, all those are possible factors, but they're down the line factors. They're later considerations, not now. The only thing that you should start with when you think about what field or what business you should go into is truly understanding who you are, what turns you on and excites you, what are your core competencies and skill sets, and what is it that you could go into in that full field of human interests out there that you would be happy in doing that every day for the rest of your life. Now, we give you a process for doing that, and it's called the funnel approach. And the reason it's called the funnel approach is the front end of it's a big funnel that sucks in the entire planet. And the bottom of it is a very tiny little spout through which is going to plop out that one or two or three areas of human endeavor that are going to be the perfect ones for you to go into business in right now. And so that's why it's called the funnel approach. And it starts with doing something very mundane. It starts with doing something that most of us hate to do. And it's called doing a self-analysis. First of all, most of us don't want to look at ourselves that closely. We prefer to think we're good enough just the way we are, and that the whole world will somehow come together for us just if we be ourselves. And it ain't so. The world was not designed for us in our native state. If it was, we'd all be on beaches someplace eating coconuts. Okay? The world has come to a certain level of sophistication, and it requires certain things to be successful in it. And understanding ourselves and what we're capable of and what it is we really love to do and are designed at our core to do is a key part of this process. And if you haven't made the investment in yourself to do this systematically, then you are shortchanging yourself as to what's available for you out there in life. And so in this section, we take you through this process called the funnel approach. It's how to systematically do this self-analysis. How to determine where you are personally. What are your likes and your dislikes? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Most of us don't want to admit our weaknesses, but you know, it's okay. I have them. I know what they are. And I structure my business ventures to artfully avoid them. And I'll give you an example. I am not a good administrator of a business. I don't have the time or patience to do it well. So if I want to buy a business that I'm going to run, God bless that business. I run a business best when I team up or partner with somebody who administratively, that's their strength. And then I do the deals, I do the structuring, I do the negotiation, I bring in the parties. I create the business concepts, the business plan, the models. I love doing that. I'm good at doing that. But I can't run the thing to save my life. It's going to go the wrong way if I'm running it day to day. So I fess up to it. And I admit it. And then I structure around it. But knowing what my strengths are, knowing what my weaknesses are, admitting my weaknesses and learning to structure around it is key to the ultimate success you're going to have in your business. And part of this process will take you through, and remember, there's page after page on this stuff, determining where you are professionally. what contacts you have that you can reach out to that can help you, determining where you are financially right now, and being honest with yourself. Maybe you can't write a check for $100,000 right now. Maybe you want to buy something that's going to require a check for $1 million, and you can't write that right now. Maybe you can't write a check for $5,000 or $10,000, but know where that threshold is. Understand where that limitation is. You're going to learn everything in this program you need to know to structure around it, but at least own up to it. Fess up to it. Get it clear in your head that for now, this is a potential obstacle for you, and what you're going to learn as you move forward in this program is how to finesse that obstacle, how to mentally take yourself through that obstacle. What are the tools and techniques that will take you through that obstacle? They're all here. And then the system takes you through a process to match yourself to a business. Which business would suit you? And then you start to look at those other questions that we asked earlier. Which of those businesses that interest you are in growth industries? And then, having gotten all of that, how do you locate this business? And you'll see the next item there, establishing your business criteria. How many of you really honestly now have a criteria for the business that you want to buy? I mean, you've done the homework. You looked it up in RMA annual statement studies in the industry. You've formulated a sales size company that you'd be comfortable owning. So you know the business, you know the industry, you know the sales size, and from the sales size in the RMA annual statement studies, you're able to go back and say, okay, how much cash would be in this business when I find it? How much inventory would it be carrying? How many locations would it probably have? How many employees would it employ? The whole picture. I mean, so you picture it in your mind. See, subconscious speaks in pictures. It doesn't use words. It's in pictures. The minute you picture something in your mind, you're giving a phenomenal message to your subconscious on what you want it to do for you. And so having that criteria in writing, the way it's shown you in the program, how to set it up, will take you through an actual criteria in writing that paints a vivid picture of the enterprise that you would like to purchase. From the numbers, you'll know how much you can pay for it. You'll know where you're going to leverage the resources of that company to get the financing that will enable you to buy it. And from our program, you'll know all the structure and strategy for how to pull all those pieces together. So don't let it bother you that at this moment in time, perhaps, you don't have a clue how you're going to buy this company that you've criterioized. You criteriorize it. And once you've done that, your subconscious is clear on where you want to go. More importantly, you have a tool that you can communicate with everybody on planet Earth who can help you to acquire that company, from attorneys to accountants to bankers to investors to business brokers. No one has a question anymore of what direction you're going in, what it is that you want to do, and now they can put into it how they fit into your picture, because very few people paint a picture for the people they want help from. And so the minute you paint that picture for them, they're clearer on how they're going to help you than they are on anybody else, and guess where their attention goes? To you. You have stronger allies and partners the minute that you have that criteria. You've proven your professionalism, and you've eliminated their vetting and validating of you because you've come to them so professionally. Everything you need to know to put together this criteria is in our program. Everything. And remember, any question you have, you can always call us on the advisor line or send us an email. We'll help you through it. But hopefully, as I'm discussing these, you can kind of see how, wow, if I had that, sure, it would make this easier. Yeah, if I took the time and the energy to do that, all of a sudden, this isn't going to stop me anymore, this identifying the right business or field to go into. If I do the homework here, number one, as a stopper, goes away. It goes away. And then we take you right into how to find that specific business for sale and getting that business broker to work with you, which is in a large part based on this criteria. Finding the business for sale online, how to use online techniques to do it, using techniques of the seasoned entrepreneur, which is never to go to business brokers, don't go online, Develop insider contacts like bankers and attorneys and accountants and people who are key in an industry who already have contacts with all these people, who know who the good businesses are, who know who the owners are, who want to sell and who are looking to get out with a good purchase price or get out with a good partner to take over. They know all these people. And it takes a little time. You invest that time. You build some relationships with these people. And all of a sudden, they become fountains for you, fountains of value in who you want to contact. And they even provide you with warm, roasty, toasty introductions so that you're not that, as will come about later, that person picking up a cold phone or turning that hot doorknob because it's already been made warm and wonderful for you by the person who already has that contact and who is a prestige person in the eyes of that business owner, so that when you meet him, you've come to him through a prestige introduction. See, all those things start to knock down these barriers. We get into, in this section, all the things that will unstop this for you. All the potential contact sources, all of the tools that are out there on the internet, in various places, magazines, all of the things that can be sources for you for how to find that right business. And even how to get a business broker to work for you. You know, this criteria is such an important part of this. If you go to a business broker and you say to them, and I can't tell you how many times I watch people do this. They go to the business broker and say something like, I'm interested in purchasing a business. I'm here. That's why I'm here. I want to purchase a business. I'm not sure what field I want to go into. So I'm looking for something that doesn't require a lot of work, that that I can just go in and basically collect the money. You know, kind of like a laundry, coin-operated laundry or a car wash, or something along the lines of something that can make me a lot of money, but I don't have to put in a lot of time. And that's the way they start out. Okay, because they don't really know what field they want to go into. They don't really know what they want to do. And the very next thing that the broker asks them is, well, how much money do you have to put down? And let me see a copy of your financial statement. And it stops them right there because their statement looks like crap, pardon my French. And they don't have any money to put down of any significance. And the reason the broker asks those two questions is you've already told him by the way in which you've approached him you're not professional. And he doesn't want to waste his time with you because he gets paid a commission. He only gets paid on a closing and from the proceeds of the sale. So if you haven't got any cash in his mind, how's this deal going to be structured so I can get cash for my commission, even if you ended up buying it somehow? So he has no interest in working with you. On the other hand, when you walk into that business broker and you're in your business suit, you look the part, you act the part, and you look him in the eye and you hand him a copy of your criteria and you say to him, now, Mr. Business Broker, I'm looking for a business in the ABC field. I want it to be doing right around 10 to 20 million in sales. That's the range I'm looking for. I need to know that it's operating in 3 locations, that it will have an employee size of roughly 150 employees, that it will have a net worth in excess of blank, that it will have assets and resources in these particular categories of blank. So this is the profile of the business that I'm looking for. And when I find that business, I'll be putting a down payment down of $1 million. How did you know that? You did the RMA study, okay? You knew how much assets were in those companies that you could finance. You knew what the debt against those assets were, because that's what the RMA statement studies told you. So you knew how much additional financing could be done in a typical business of that size. So now you've given him the information that he needs to know to get very excited about you. And you don't have any credibility to build because he's going to be dusting off a chair and saying, come in, Mr. Buyer, sit right down here. I'm sure I've got something great for you. That's the difference in how you position yourself, but it takes homework. Takes homework. But when you've done the homework, which isn't that massive, we really outline it all for you here, then this is what you're able to get done. And you're able to clear that obstacle of number 1 and number 2, and you're able to find a worthwhile business for sale. Now, the thing you still don't know is if it's a motivated seller, and I'm going to come up to that in a minute. I just want to finish out some of the other things that we're going to cover here, because these are some of the techniques that are outlined here for you to use. The insider contacts, how to tap those bankruptcy courts. Ooh, they're loaded right now with stuff that you can buy at phenomenal bargains. And you just got to know, how do you talk to the trustee? What does the trustee need to hear to be excited about you? How do you structure it for the trustee so the trustee gets what he wants to satisfy his needs in the bankruptcy court, and you get what you want at bargain prices and even for bargain terms? How do you do this using direct mail? This is one of our most successful techniques, is sending out letters to people in the field that you want to do business with. I'm not going to get into the how of it here, because that's what we explain to you in the manual. It's all there, chapter and verse. Choosing that direct mail list, sending out your direct mail inquiries, how to qualify a business for sale. This is how you're finding out which ones are the ones that are worthwhile. How to qualify the seller. Now we start to get into the motivated seller here, the motivated seller portion of this. In the deal that I covered with you in our last webinar session, why is it that we had such a flexible seller? Well, he's not selling us his primary business. He's already sold that primary business to somebody else, made his deal there, whatever made him happy. Now, they've got this division or this product line that the buying company can't have, because the buying company would violate their covenant not to compete on another deal that they've made if they owned that product line. They got to get rid of it. And it's an afterthought to them. They spent all their time negotiating their basic deal, and now they're ready to close, and they don't know what to do with this thing that they haven't figured out what to do with. So time's against them. They're motivated. The big deal's already been done. This is a cast-off. But it's a great cast-off. It's a profit maker. It's a winner. It's just much smaller than the original deal that these big guys did together. And so we got a motivated seller. Well, a thought that might go through your head is, well, you just got lucky, Bizar. It just, there it was. It was luck. Sure, it was luck. But you know how you get lucky? You get out there and put a lot of deals through the front end of your funnel. And a bunch of them will fall out because no motivated seller. The seller wants to hold out for the last dollar of value, and he wants all cash, and he's not ready to talk to you about anything else. Well, why do you want to waste time with him when you know out there are motivated sellers for dozens and dozens of reasons? But if you're wasting all your time talking to the guys who aren't flexible, who aren't motivated, you're pouring time down a drain that you could be using to find the motivated seller. And there's dozens of reasons for this. And there are transactions going on in any field every single day of company A buys company B, but they got to get rid of division C. Or they just don't want division C because it's just too small for them. Or it's not part of the strategic structure of the buying business. And this is just one set of things where you get a motivated seller. In the workbook, we take you through dozens of reasons that there are sellers that are motivated. So all of a sudden you have people who tell me, I can't find a motivated seller. I can't find a motivated seller. Well, have you looked? Have you read through all the possible ways that a seller becomes motivated? I'll give you one that's happening daily right now, just for example. You have people, from the biggest people to the smallest people, are going through divorces. Divorce is an equal opportunity messer-upper. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, it doesn't care. But when it hits you, it turns your life upside down no matter how big you are. And all of a sudden, you got to get rid of stuff. And for a whole bunch of psychological reasons, a lot of the things that these people own, including businesses, when they sell them, or pieces of businesses, they get really, really flexible because it's got to get handled. Estates. The business owner just died. And you got a widow and a trustee. And they don't know what the heck to do with this business. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And so if you know what you're looking for, you wish through all that other stuff. So you don't get stuck with it. And yeah, some great businesses you don't even take a really good look at. Why? Because the seller isn't motivated. And you learn to get through that stuff really, really quickly. I won't go through this, but if you're starting a business, there's a business startup checklist in there that can help you go through all the steps for getting started. Library research sources, anything you're going to want to research. So when you get into all this other stuff, when you get into the field that you want to go into, when you get into a specific business that you want to get into, when you're looking at any part of this equation, we have a research library there that will take you, if you just spend some time in it, just go in there and just read the headings, read the sites that are listed there. Think about them. How could I use this? What would this tell me? And all of a sudden you start to realize, wow, I can learn that. I can find out about this. This site will take me to where there's 500 venture capital sources and tell me everything I need to know about each one, and what deals they do and what deals they don't do, and what size businesses they want to look at, what industries they're excited about. It's all there. And learning how to use your internet search engines to find more. Learning where these internet business research websites are. They're all in this resource center. You can now tie in electronically into all your daily newspapers, all your weekly, bi-monthly, monthly magazines. I think print is not going to exist in another 5 to 10 years. Everything will be on a tablet or on your computer, and you'll be able to access everything electronically, and it'll all be indexed. So you put in the keywords of what you want, and it'll all magically appear for you. So in the past, where you may say, well, I'm not good at research. I don't know how to do that. I'm not patient enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. It's BS. It's getting easy. And all it's coming down to anymore is typing the right keywords into search engines and into other internet resources. So whatever was true for you in the past, whatever you weren't good at in the past, whatever was a little beyond you in the past, I will guarantee you that technology has made it more accessible for you, has made it easier for you to do it, has made it possible for you to overcome your own foibles in doing this. Look what we're doing with the multiple entity income transfer tool. We're taking something that is so complex that only a handful of very wealthy people can afford top professionals to work this through and think this through for them. And we're automating it so that an ordinary business operator or an ordinary consultant type person can sit down in any business and structure it for them what it would take people with tremendous experience and capabilities and insight to do in the past. And if you're not looking out for what's going on in the world that can bring that power to your fingertips, you're not doing yourself a favor. So what we try to do here in this section of what we do, and in our research library and all of that, is try and bring to your fingertips those things that can get you quickly and easily things that were beyond you in the past. So update your thought process here a little bit. Think in terms of today's technology and the things that are out there. Be open to what technology is accomplishing. I have a particular frustration with technology, and you may have it too. And my frustration is I got so many things that I'm into now. I got so many things, and they keep changing. I mean, not a week goes by and they haven't done a major revision on something I use. And now I got to go back and relearn that. And oh my God, I have no time for that. So I have to be a little careful, okay, of what tools I'm going to use, how I'm going to go about staying up on the process. And so one of the things that we're trying to do with Bizar Financing is to keep Bizar Financing that tool which sorts through all the wheat and the chaff out there, finds what's valuable to business owners to do and to have and to access, and then make sure that we've made it convenient and easy for them to get to it here. So please, stay up on our tools. spend a little time to see what we've got here and get into some of them and just ask yourself, how can I use this? How can I use this? How, if I use this, will I be better off? Just ask yourself that question. And when answers start to pop up for you, then you invest a little time in looking at exactly what is it, how does it work, and how do you make it work for you. I'm going to bypass trends in business, not because it doesn't have value. It has phenomenal value. It has value in finding the worthwhile business. But this thing here, I could spend an hour, literally, on just this section. And I'll summarize it only this way. In here are all the psychographic, demographic reasons that people buy and do what they do, and how on a national and international basis movements occur that affect in mass how people think and what they do, when and how they do it. All that psychology, all of the reasoning and ration behind all of that stuff is simplified as much as we can make it simplified for you here. So that as you're thinking about any business, as you're in any business and looking to grow, understanding these elements that are here in, I want to just go to the end, in 18 pages, pretty tightly packed. But in those 18 pages, you will have a perspective on what it is that's going to happen over the next 8 years that is going to be major in terms of industries that grow, industries that shrink, how people think and make their buying decisions, how it is that commerce can come your way. And so investing some time to read through this is just part of identifying which businesses are going to be worthwhile for you to be in and which ones may not be. Now again, this is something here, D, asset analysis, that affects several of these, not just one of them. It affects worthwhile business because you have to understand the assets of the business and knowing if they have value or not and what value they have and knowing what value to put on them for your purchase because you don't want to overpay. So it has a factor in this worthwhile. But it also has a big factor in the negotiating of the purchase. Because if you really understand this, I will guarantee you there are hidden assets in every business you go into that the owner has no clue what they're worth. No clue how to finance them. No clue how to utilize those assets in certain ways that can produce eminently more cash flow and value in their business. And so spending some time here, understanding the different categories of assets, learning how to evaluate an asset's value, how to do an asset analysis, ways to leverage machinery and equipment, inventory, whether you're a wholesaler or a manufacturer or a retailer, how to understand and put the appropriate value on accounts receivable, how to leverage those accounts receivable, valuing real estate, understanding how to leverage real estate, especially in today's marketplace. How appraisers are going to look at these things and how they look at them differently today than they did a year or two ago. Anybody who's bought a house in the last 2 years knows that the appraisers are different than they were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the appraiser knew who they worked for. They worked for the seller. And the seller wanted only one thing: a high appraisal. And the buyer wanted only one thing: a high appraisal to get it financed. And the banker or the lender didn't count in this process. It doesn't work that way anymore. Now, most laws and states have changed. Most appraisals are now done blind. They can't have any communication with the seller or the buyer. They have to go in, they have to do their independent appraisal, they give it back, that's it. And they work for the banks now, okay, in their mind. And so what they're looking for is now a low and totally realistic, but low appraisal. And so the values have shifted in this world. And knowing how to work with that shift in the thinking process is, again, an important part of this process. And we try to keep it captured here for you. Continuing through the asset analysis, depending on what kind of business you're going to go into, how it will be appraised, how you can get it appraised differently by taking a different approach to how it's appraised. These are some of the aspects of this that can be very, very valuable in this process. And the same is true for doing the financial analysis. Understanding a financial statement. I can't tell you how many people in business, this amazes me, never look at a financial statement on their own company. They view it as kind of a necessary evil that they kind of have to keep for bankers and for tax people and for other people who would have maybe inquiries about their business. But they very rarely look at it in terms of how can it help them manage their company better. Well, if you're buying a company, that financial statement is going to spell out everything you need to know to price that business. Understanding financial statements, understanding what they tell you, what they don't tell you. It's all in the program here. It's all there. Not being intimidated by numbers on a financial statement and knowing how to properly put them into our tools, into our business price calculator, into our doable deal analyzer, which will take all the guesswork out of evaluating your company. You still have to pull those numbers from the financial statement or data on the company. And so you've got to have a rudimentary understanding of this here. And if you're smart, you'll go beyond rudimentary understanding because in there are some phenomenal management tools for running your business and knowing what's not working in your business and what has to work differently in order for you to increase sales and make a good net profit. But all these two here, both asset analysis and financial analysis, help you in the foundation of being a good negotiator, because once you master an understanding of these, you don't have to be able to do them. You can hire an accountant to do them. You can hire an appraiser to do them. But by understanding them, you become a great negotiator because now you know what your pivot points are within the financial analysis and within that asset analysis. And they together help you complete the business price calculator so that you understand those values, you understand what portion of value is you're paying for that's really goodwill, what's in that goodwill, what makes it up, and how to finance that goodwill, because the goodwill is the hardest part of the business, the finance. Other ways of valuing the business. Again, these things are all here, and all these tools, all these understandings and tools are part of understanding what makes a business worthwhile to buy, and then giving you the pivot points to make that incredible negotiation that make this a real win for you. Now that takes us to our doable deal analyzer, which again takes you through those 114 different sources and methods of funding that purchase. So that the cash is going to be there. It's going to come from someplace. It's just not going to come from you. And when you've got as many sources as we have here, and you've gone through it, and you know what each one is, and you've matched it against the business that you're trying to buy, and you've asked yourself the key question, all right, technique number 103, blankety blank, whatever it is, how do I use that? Can it apply here? If I were to use it, what advantage would that be for me? You see, those are critical questions to ask yourself about each and every one of those 114 sources. And when you've done that systematically, it's impossible not to have enough cash to close your deal. It's impossible. The only way it's possible is if the business isn't worthwhile and it doesn't produce enough revenue to purchase itself, in which case, who wants to buy it? So if it's a worthwhile purchase, the money will be there. It'll be in those 114 sources. And they're all here. Keeps on going, page after page. Again, this is not to go through every one of them, it's to remind you that they're here and that they're designed to overcome these stopping points once you understand them. So how to negotiate a deal that will close. This is so important that we've dedicated literally a whole section to this, and how to do it, and do it phenomenally well. And some of you may feel challenged here because you may feel, well, I don't have great communication skills. I kind of mumble when I talk. I bumble through things. I move from a thought here to a thought there. I don't give a good, straightforward, coherent explanation of things. If you're realistic about yourself, you're going to come up with some reasons why you are not a good negotiator. And you're also going to come up with some great reasons why you could be or are a great negotiator. And once you've identified those strengths and those weaknesses, you're going to be able to go through this section. And you're going to learn what it is that you can do in this process of negotiation and what it is you can't do. And the good news about Bizar Financing is we'll help you at every level. Meaning we'll help train you in negotiating techniques and methods so that you can strengthen up any part of it that you need to so that you are the good negotiator. We'll come in and help you over a particular hurdle when you need somebody to negotiate a specific part of it. We'll help you do it. And in the case of this company that we're purchasing that I gave you the illustration of in the last webinar session, there the folks who were putting it together decided that they weren't good enough to negotiate it at all, and they had me do the whole thing for them. So we do that too. It's better if you can do it yourself. My preference is to train you to fish, so you never, ever, ever have a lack of fish to eat. But if it means that sometimes we have to step in and hand you fish, we'll do it. If it gets you over that hump, we'll do that. We're here to really support you in that. So to be that good negotiator, and to get over this negotiating the purchase as being a stopping to you got to have self-confidence. You got to have the confidence that you're going to be able to sit in front of that seller, sit in front of that lender, sit in front of whoever, and be able to carry yourself off in a way that commands respect and that handles the issues that come up and does it in a professional way. You feel that good about yourself, you're going to do it. The way you feel that good about yourself is two things. One, studying those materials that are in here. And two is practice. Do not expect yourself to be a whiz-bang first time out the door. I've watched people go through this part many, many times. And the first time they get out there, they screw it up royally. But they learned. They learned what not to say. They went back to the studying of that section. They went back to reviewing the audios and the videos. And they said, oh, now I see why I screwed that up. Now I can fix that. I can do that differently. And third or fourth time out, they're pros. Okay? Because you learn really, really quickly when you're on the firing line. But that takes courage. It takes courage to get out there when you're not fully self-confident. So one way to minimize that is to do some practicing. Okay? And by practicing, I don't mean practicing even with the seller. Practicing with an associate, practicing with a spouse, practicing with a friend, role play. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can get yourself psychologically past the fear. And fear is the biggest stopper here. So preparing yourself, preparing your setting, understanding what happens in a setting, why the advantage goes to certain people depending on the setting that the negotiation takes place in, how to take control of that setting, so that it happens the way you want it to happen instead of the way somebody else wants it to happen, so that when you go into that setting, you feel strong. And I'll give you one simple example. And if you go with me on this, you're going to feel this. See, courage is not intellectual. Courage is emotional. And you got to feel it. Picture yourself sitting in a table with three other people. It's a round table, and there are four of you sitting around the round table. You're sitting in a seat that's in the corner, and the wall comes to a V behind you. everyone else at the table is sitting in a seat that has no back to it. It's just empty room. Feel yourself sitting in the seat in the corner with the corner compressing your energy behind you and removing any feeling of vulnerability because there is a solid wall behind you. Feel what it's like to sit there and talk to the three other people who have open vulnerability behind them, who have nothing condensing the energy behind them. And you can feel, if you're into what I'm saying to you right now, you can feel the difference in sitting in that seat at that meeting and the command that you have over everyone's attention versus being in one of the three seats with its back open to the room. Put yourself in one of those other three seats, talking to the person sitting in the chair with the corner behind them. You can feel the difference. You can feel the difference in the confidence level you would have depending on which of those seats you're sitting in. Bizar Financing is the only business program I know of its type that goes into the whole psychology of business buying, buyers, sellers, finance people, so that we truly understand them. We understand the mechanics. We understand what's going to happen. We can position ourselves so that everything is to our advantage. Now, I'm going to go from the H section just very quickly back to the A section. And A3, the psychology of business success, the 4 personality types, and how to influence them. This model is so important in the negotiating process, I cannot possibly stress it enough. Every single seller that I talk with, every single lender that I talk with, investor that I talk with, the very first thing I do is I assess which of the 4 personality styles they are. Are they a controller? Are they a supporter? Are they an analyst? Or are they a promoter? And once I've determined that, which takes less than 3 minutes to know for sure, I mean, really know for sure which is their primary style, I now know how to communicate with them to minimize their resistance and maximize their cooperation. And it's all here in section A3. It's totally replicatable by you. With that methodology behind you, with that understanding behind you, the world takes on a different complexion. If I have a controller, I know I can't sell them on my deal. I have to cut off the means of escape and leave them to find and conclude what's the right direction to go and how to get it done. I just lead them there, knowing that if I try and tell them to go there, I'll kill my deal. When I'm dealing with a promoter, I know how to talk to them about all of the status, all of the recognition they're going to get out of what's going to come out of this deal. When I'm talking to a supporter, I understand how to apply the relationship side of the transaction. When I talk to an analyst, I know how to deal with and structure and give them miles and reams of data and how to remove the uncertainty of the transaction so that the only way they can be wrong is not do the deal. Because I understand how they think. I understand what they value. And I know how to minimize that resistance and maximize their cooperation. And you can too. You just got to understand this model. You just got to be able to take its very simple, elementary pieces, plug them into your own experience level, which you've had sufficient experience in life up to now to fully understand this. And then practice using it. And eventually you get really good at it. And it's a key part of this negotiating the purchase, because these folks are going to be putty in your hands. And you're going to direct different things to different players, because they all aren't going to be coming from the same place. Back to Jay. Okay, getting the funding if needed is the next place that people get stopped. Well, there's lots of ways to get money. Lots of ways to just get cash. So forget the no cash. What if we need cash? Well, there's a whole bunch of financial institutions out there that's their business. The problem is that most of the deals that you want to do probably won't qualify for the financial institutions that are out there. And that'll be for one of several reasons. You don't have a good enough personal financial statement, or the deal you want to do is too small. They don't want to do less than $500,000 to $1 million deal. They don't want to touch it. They don't care how good it is. They don't care you're going to personally guarantee it. They don't care how strong your financial statement is. They don't care that it's going to get paid back with their VIG, with their rate of interest. They don't care. Because on a $100,000 loan, if it returns 10% to them, it's $10,000. That doesn't pay for the administrative cost of making and monitoring and worrying about that loan. And when you get to $1 million, 10%, well, now it starts to become worthwhile. When you get to $10 million, $20 million, it's very worthwhile. They could even loan it out at a much lower rate and still make their money. So if you're fishing in the small pond, you might want to rethink that. And if you're thinking, well, yeah, but my financial statement won't justify more than that small business or more than that small loan, well, you may be right. But that's what partners are for. Because out there is a guy who's your antimatter, who's your exact opposite, who's got plenty of money and no business opportunities and no business sense. And he's looking to partner up with somebody who doesn't have all that much money necessarily, but who's got lots of business sense and know how he can get things done. And in your first deal with that guy, if he's a shark, he may want the lion's share of the business. So you know what? If it's your first deal and it's the only place you can get the money, you give it to him. And you get a track record of one under your belt, because guess what happens then? The next time you need money and you go back to him, you drive a harder deal. And if he doesn't go for the harder deal, you take your track record and you'll go to somebody else who likes your track record. And then you don't give up the lion's share of the deal the second time, because number one, your balance sheet's a lot better, your financial statement's a lot better from the first deal, and your track record is there, which makes you a hot commodity. In here, we tell you who all the financial sources are. We tell you how to get to them. We tell you what to say to them, what they need to hear. We tell you how to present yourself to them. We give you examples. We take you through every part of what it's going to take to get yourself into that financial institution that will get you the type of funding you need, because a venture capitalist is not a banker. A banker is not an asset-based lender. They have different expectations. They have different rules that they play by. And so here are all the rules. Here's what they need to know. Here's what they're going to make their decision on. Here's how you approach them. Here's how you engage them. Here's how you get them to think you're the hottest thing since sliced bread. How to shop for that bank. How to qualify that banker. Cultivating that banking relationship. Bankers love relationships. They love to go to lunch. They'll even buy. I don't let them. When and where to use what type of financing. It's all described here. reversing a negative cash flow using an ESOP is a highly specialized area. Not everybody wants to go here. I only bring it up because what I want you to understand, this is only one of a whole bunch of techniques that we have for reversing negative cash flows. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because when you get right here to closing the deal, I can't tell you the number of people that get there and choke. They got through all this stuff and they won't pull the trigger. And why won't they pull the trigger? Because they are fearful. What if I made a mistake? What if the economy turns sour? What if this company loses a couple of its big customers? What if? And they go through all the things that could happen that would turn their cash flow negative and screw up the purchase. And if you want to get rid of that fear, if that's a problem for you, it may not be, but if that's a problem for you, then understanding all of our various techniques for how to reverse negative cash flow are critical, because you get a confidence factor real quick that no matter how much a business might mess up, there's always a way that an enterprising entrepreneur can turn that cash flow positive. And you need to only relate to the story of the two orderlies who ended up saving the jobs of all their sophisticated doctor co-workers because they understood a strategy for buying a company that instantly would turn the negative cash flow of that hospital positive the day after they owned that hospital. Again, it's a story we all know by now. So it's in our program. You know how to go back and review it at any time that you want to. But there was a strategy there that ensured that that hospital would have strong positive cash flow from the day it was acquired. So that makes the fear go away. When you know you've structured the deal so that it's going to have strong positive cash flow, when you know that if anything turns negative later, there's a myriad of techniques that you understand and can implement to correct that negative cash flow quickly. This is a pool of great assets to buy and reasons to have motivated sellers and reasons to have allies. Again, remember the story of how I bought the company out of bankruptcy. The manufacturer of a motorcycle part that was one of the companies I bought with my motorcycle part company. The asset-based lender, Aetna Business Credit, paid me $100,000 to go in there and buy that company with all their money. And again, we go through this all in great detail, but there's psychology that's going on in these bankruptcy courts. There's psychology that's going on with the lender who's about to take a big loss. There is psychology going on with the suppliers to this company who are about to take a big loss. There's psychology going on with the customers of this company who are going to lose a valued supplier. There are psychologies going on with the employees in this company who are about to lose their jobs. There are psychologies going on with the executives who are about to watch their fabulous lifestyle go down the toilet. And if you understand those, and if you have at your grasp the techniques and the methods for taking everyone's negative psychology and turning it to your advantage and making them phenomenal allies, then in this marketplace there is a rich source of companies and assets to buy in these bankruptcy courts. Now, maybe it's not your thing. Maybe that's not where you want to go look. You're just not happy there, comfortable there, whatever. But look at it. Investigate it. Take some time. Go visit the bankruptcy court. Watch what happens there. Watch what happens when a company assets get sold on the courthouse steps. Take a look at the bankruptcy files. Look through there and see how detailed they are, laying out every single asset of that company. The most vivid, accurate description you will ever see of a company's assets are in those bankruptcy files. You'll be blown away by what's there. And you'll be blown away by how little it will take to get them. And then we get to the no cash leveraging strategies. And this is part of closing the deal. Closing the deal is sort of a function of negotiation too. But part of closing the deal is understanding the case studies. And the reason I say that is because I get back to this fear factor here. The way you make fear go away is to make the activity so commonplace it's not worthy of fear. And the reason we train by case studies, by taking you through a storyline, letting you put yourself in the story, and letting you picture how the story plays out around you, helps to remove that fear factor, because you step into that closing room, and now, even if you never have been, you've been there before. You got the feeling of what it's like. You have the picture in front of you of how it all comes together, how the strategies work to make these things successful, and how you have a feeling of being in command of them. And so we go through study after study after case study after case study. Some on the audio that are not on the video, some on the video that are not on the audio, some that are on all of them, some that are in the workbook that aren't anyplace else. But we go through them, case study after case study, taking every conceivable set of circumstances that you can imagine in a business. Service businesses, to manufacturing businesses, to wholesale, to retail. Every type, every size, every psychological setting, every geographical setting, every economic setting, from good economies to bad economies. And so that by the time you're finished with this, there isn't anything that's going to happen to you in that negotiation or in that closing that deal, in your process of structuring this, in pulling all the pieces together. There isn't anything that's going to happen to you that you will not have seen before and have a sense of how you're going to handle it. Now, for as long as I've been giving this program, which is now more than 30 years, I keep thinking that, well, we've seen every scenario there is to see by now. And we've seen probably 90 some odd percent of them. I don't know how to put a definite percent on it, but it's up there. But every once in a while, somebody comes across something, and it doesn't quite fit the case study models. And so we incorporate it in here. So what you're looking at in these case studies is an accumulation over 30 years of the best illustrations of what it takes to put these transactions together, structure them, overcome the obstacles, using all of the tools and resources that are available to you through Bizar financing. And so these leveraging strategies just keep going on and on and on and on and on. And then the final section of our program here is designed to take you through this last closing of this deal, is to make sure that you do what it takes to take every one of these steps here and clear every one of these stopping points. This is full of emotional underpinning that can free you to actually get out there and do this. It addresses the key reasons why people fail at any of these processes. Part of it comes right in here to this word fear, all of which is conquered by knowledge. And that's why I've said to people over and over again, hundreds and hundreds of times, it doesn't take money to do these deals. It takes knowledge, which leads to courage. And with the knowledge and the courage, the cash either is unnecessary or it's there for you. And then, of course, what are these greatest obstacles to succeeding? Again, I'm not here to cover them today. They're in the materials. So now, here's what I'd like to say to you. I'm going to assume that if you're on this webinar today, that you're facing at least one of these stages right here where you feel potentially stopped. And even if you don't feel stopped, you've been hitting this wall for some period of time, and it hasn't yielded to you yet. And what I want to encourage you to do is to review this webinar that we're on today. Identify the sections of Bizar financing that are specifically designed to help you clear that obstacle or that stopping point. Go back into those sections. Review them over again and over again and over again. And I'm not talking once or twice. I'm talking 3, 4, 5 times. Watch the videos. Listen to the audios. Reread the material. Ask yourself as you're redoing it the questions, how can this help me? What if I use this? What difference could it make? And you will see that over a period of a week to 2 weeks at the most, that stopping point will yield to you, because you will have a confidence that you understand and have the methods and the resources required to smash through that stopping point. And if at the end you still feel that you're not quite there, you pick up that phone, you call 805-497-1000, and you ask to speak to Gordon Bizar. And I will be on the phone for you to help make sure that you get through that stopping point. So I don't know how to say it any plainer or any simpler than it's all here. Everything you need to do it. And if you've got a good deal, if you've gone through all this stuff, okay, and you get to this part where there's negotiating and all this part is done, you got that worthwhile business. This is for sale by a motivated seller. You've arranged that meeting directly with the seller, but you just can't bring yourself to do that negotiating and purchasing. We'll come up with a structure that'll enable us to do that for you. Get into that first business. If you can do it all yourself and you're fully confident every way, you can do it where you don't need a big investor and you end up owning the whole thing, or 90% or 60% or whatever the magic number to control that company is. That's fantastic. If anything's stopping you, and it means you give up a percentage of the company to partnering with somebody who has the knowledge, the skill sets, the experience to take you through that obstacle, give it up to them. Get the first deal done. At that point, you got two things. One is you will have increased your balance sheet and you will now have cash flow when the deal is done right. And you will have track record, which means that you've got more resources to get the second deal done. So if the first deal you don't end up in control of, if that's the downside, but you end up as a player and you improve your balance sheet and you improve your cash flow and you get track record, you are now positioned to do the second deal where you end up with that control, where you end up in the driver's seat, where you end up with the lion's share of the value. That's the beauty of business, is you don't have to do it all yourself. In fact, the biggest people in business have lots of partners. They don't try to do everything themselves. They focus on their core competency and skill set, whatever that is. Part of going back here and looking at these 4 personality styles is to understand which of the 4 you are. It's part of your self-assessment so that you understand how you think, what you put value on, what's important to you, what is your method of thinking through processes, what is your most comfortable method of operation. Because that's the part you should focus on. If I'm a great promoter, if I'm that promoter guy and that's my core competency and skill set, What the frick am I going to waste my time doing the administration or the accounting in that company for? I get somebody who that's their thing. That's their core competency. I get an analyst personality type for that. And I either hire him or I partner with him. Because I am not going to do it. It will fail if I do it. So knowing who you are and structuring your business enterprise around your strengths and your weaknesses is critical for success. And it comes out to just being honest with yourself. You're not supposed to be good at everything. We have people who are part of this webinar series right now. I will guarantee you that when they think of financial analysis and asset analysis and numbers and price calculators and doable deal analyzers, their eyes glaze over. Because they don't understand that stuff. And no matter how hard they try to understand that stuff, they are never going to understand it at a high level. They'll, at best, they're going to have a sense of it. But does that mean that they shouldn't own a business? No. It means they damn well better partner with somebody who that's their strength. And I say partner with because if your eyes glaze over when you look at numbers, okay, you don't want an employee. They will drag you around your own business by a hook in your own nose. You want a partner who fully respects your promotion skills or your controlling skills or your supporter skills to build relationships. And through that mutual value, knows that they uphold their end of the bargain, you uphold your end of the bargain, and you march into the successful sunset together. If you're a controller type and you absolutely have no bedside manner, and you alienate everyone you talk to, but you drive for that bottom line, and you're good when it comes to making the hard decisions, partner up with a supporter who's brilliant at getting relationships together, who's brilliant at creating loyalties in your suppliers, loyalties in your customers, loyalties in your investors, loyalty in your lenders. Understand that you communicate differently, that you value things differently than your partner does, and bridge that with mutual respect for who they are and the tasks they have at hand. That's how you build successful businesses, major companies. It's also how you can build a modest business where you just both or three of you or four of you or however many there are of you just make a fantastic income and build a nice net worth and security for yourself. We all have different goals here. We're all not headed to the same place. So what's key is partnering up, joint venturing with, employing people who are compatible with our values and our dreams and our drive. Now, I've covered this in an hour and a half. I've covered in that hour and a half the full spectrum of everything that goes into the successful purchase of a business, from your own self-analysis to what businesses you should go into, to how to find the right ones, the ones that are worthwhile, how to get in front of the sellers, how to negotiate the purchases, how to get funding if they're needed and close the deal. Everything got covered in an hour and a half. Now, not the detail, but everything that goes into that process got covered in an hour and a half. How complicated can that be? In a week and a half to 2 weeks, maybe 3, a month at the outset, you can review in sufficient amount every single one of these sections and facets of this program to the point where you will have no surprises, where you will have a complete understanding of everything that goes into this process. You will have a chance to make the selections of the methods and the processes you will use based on your evaluation of yourself and others. You will have a plan. You will have a strategy that you'll want to follow. You will have a comfort factor that you are on the right track and that the energy and time and resources that you put behind yourself to make it happen will be well worth the journey. And from that base, world, get out of your way. Because nothing's going to stop you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that enables us to wrap it up for today. Hopefully this has been informational and motivational for you and helps you move on to your next step. Thank you for being here. We'll see you again in 2 weeks from today for what will be another session of where I'm going to each week take a different one of these stopping points and go into it in way more detail. See, today we went through the general process. We went through all the tools, everything that's here for you in Bizar Financing. But we did it from 20,000 feet. And what I'm going to do from now on is week by week, I'm going to go into these various stopping points. And I'm going to go down to 2,000 or 3,000 feet so we can see a lot of the detail down there on the ground. So if you're stopped by that, here's how you unstop yourself.